yes, we can work from home. Not all the time. We can still get a good culture if we're in the office a few times a week, but we can work from home. Obviously, there are jobs out there that you absolutely cannot do from home, NHS, etc.
You wouldn't want your surgeon working from home.
No,
Yeah.
no, that would not be a good time.
Welcome, guys, to a Blue Digital Roundup. So me and Sarah have been discussing over the last few weeks about sharing our thoughts and opinions about what's happened in 2024, going into December, as well as into the new year for 2025. So this year has definitely had a lot of stuff happen throughout the year, from January to December, and we're super pumped and super excited about what 2025 will bring. But a lot of you have been asking us questions in the last few weeks. Like, how have you guys been in the last year or so? How is December looking? What do you think will happen in 2025? Because a lot has happened in the world, as well as the world of recruitment, in the last year or so. So we're super excited just to share some thoughts and opinions about what's actually happened, and hopefully you can take some nuggets away, which will be super useful in your job search for the new year, or maybe you might be recruiting for your team, so it might give you some insight into that. So yeah, super excited, aren't we?
Definitely. So yes, let's just get straight into it.
Let's get straight into it.
Let's dive in. So I think one thing that we definitely can't deny, it has been a little bit tougher this year. In all of our conversations, we do have people that are saying it's a lot tougher to find roles. There's a lot more competition. But the good thing is that people have been getting roles.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would be good to just look at the key ways that people have been getting roles this year.
Yeah, I think it hasn't changed much, to previous years.
Yeah.
But I would say there's one particular area which stands out more. But if you were to treat everyone's job search, I don't know what your thoughts are. It's pretty much a third. So a third has been through headhunters such as ourselves here at Blue Digital. Mm-hmm. Another third has been through internal recruitment teams. But what's played a big part is people's own networks and leveraging that. So there has been a lot of change at the top within companies, and they have been bringing known entities in. So a lot of people have been reaching out to past colleagues or people that they know, or a friend of a friend who can come in and slot in straight away. So there's a lot of that going on. But at the same time, people are still utilizing recruitment businesses, leveraging their internal recruitment teams. So it's a bit of an even split. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think if we go on to the networking aspect, I think this year it's been an interesting one, because I do think that people are maybe kind of vented out, maybe networked out, and we get it. But I think this year more than ever has shown how important it actually is, and how it is sort of critical to build, even if it's a tiny network, one or two people, it's just getting yourself out there. So if anyone's struggling to kind of build a network, where could they start?
First of all, it's just starting as soon as you get a job, isn't it? So making sure you're making friends with everyone, networking with people as soon as they leave, and keeping in touch with past bosses or current bosses. I think that's the most important thing that people need to do. Tapping into their network is super, super key, because if people are in a situation where they're made redundant, or they're struggling to actually find a role, because at the moment, when you apply for a role, within any good role, which with a decent brand has 100 applications within a matter of hours. Yeah. And as we know, people who know people, especially if they've got a good reputation, sometimes if they don't want to go through that interview process, like the 4-6 week process, they can just get that person straight away. So people need to have that network, so that if those situations arise where they are made redundant, they can just tap into it and cash in straight away.
Yeah, I agree. I think this year that it's definitely been about that. So it's kind of, we've had a referral, we're going down that route. We know how they work. We've worked with them before. We had a great experience. So it's a funny one, because I know sometimes it can be hard, but I would say that it's definitely about making sure that people do have a kind of good impression of you. You're not necessarily burning bridges as it stands, but that the bridges are intact. And I know it can be hard, but I think more than ever this year, it's very, very important. And it runs down to your teammates, your bosses, anyone in HR, internal recruitment. But I think it goes for both ways as well. So it is people interviewing and making sure that candidates have really good experiences, because I think that's been another situation this year that some candidate experiences haven't been the most favourable. But I think the good examples really do stay in people's minds.
Exactly. And it's it's really easy to be good when it's to attracting really good talent.
Yeah.
But I think because a lot of people are under the magnifying glass and doing a lot more due diligence, sometimes some clients, not all clients, because some clients are super quick, they can do 2 stages in a week and recruit somebody.
Yeah.
But if somebody is over analysing a process, there are processes which, we don't want them to last this long, have gone on for 6 months or for 5 months. That's because there's a lot of stop-starting, over-analysing. But that's going to happen with maybe some clients who don't have the right strategy, don't know exactly what they're looking for, or their internal matters which actually change what's happening within their digital teams.
What I would say is that a really good way to kind of build your network as well is definitely getting into a community. We've seen from our own communities that they've been super helpful for the people that have been in them in many different ways. But I think networking is definitely one of those key things. So finding a community, getting into it, going to, even if it's just 1 or 2 events. I know sometimes it's just so hard to build that into a crazy normal week. But even if it's just 1 or 2, you speak to 1 or 2 people, people are seeing your face more and more. And I think that is important, obviously in a good way. So leaving a good impression is what is still important. Because essentially when you walk into a room, you're getting interviewed straight away.
Exactly. But I think in a world where it's tougher to get a job because there's more people out of work at the moment.
Yeah.
There are people getting made redundant every single week, but there are also people securing really good roles every week.
Yeah, definitely.
But everyone's had to up their game. In every single market throughout the years, it's peaks and troughs. So at the top of the peak, the candidates have got the control and they can have the pick of the litter in terms of the amount of roles that they can go for, or maybe have multiple offers.
Yeah.
At this moment, we're in a trough where the clients have got the control and they can have the pick of the litter when it comes to candidates. And that's not ideal for most candidates because there's some really good candidates out there who need to get in some really good roles because they can add so much value. But because everyone's fighting for these good roles and in a way peacocking on LinkedIn, and because you have to get noticed. If you're not doing that, networking, going to events, pushing yourself out there, reaching out, making really good connections with headhunters such as ourselves here at Blue Digital, then you're not going to get noticed. You still will get noticed, especially if you're on LinkedIn and doing some sort of activity on your profiles on there with all the keywords. Yeah. But it's all about the margins, isn't it? By doing more, you're going to attract more. So especially in a really competitive market where we're at the moment, people do need to really push themselves.
Yeah, and I think kind of adding to that, another big thing with, ourselves as recruiters, we do get hundreds of messages a day on multiple platforms. So I think a key thing is keep following up. Yeah. If it is relevant, you will definitely get approached, but just keep following up. Try and find different ways to get in touch with people. But yeah, I think it's a hard one where everyone is, and internal recruiters will be getting the same thing, and even the hiring managers themselves will be getting hundreds of messages for per day. So yeah, just keep going with it.
So let's discuss some of the trends that we've experienced this year. So one of the things that we've experienced, especially throughout the whole 12 months, is that top layer of senior management directors either being made redundant through cost saving exercises, restructuring, and that's no fault of their own. Again, some of these people are really, really good at what they do. Yeah. And it's just literally a business decision, skimming off the top and trying to save that money within the business. So where some clients have got found out is they don't have that strategic head to actually push the business forward. They may have a strong second, which has happened. So the strong second has come up within some businesses, or alternatively, some businesses are actually recruiting people on a fractional basis as well.
Exactly. I think for 2024, the buzzword has been fractional work, fractional CMO, fractional work. But I think, and we'll come into this kind of later on as well, but that is what we're going to see probably 2025. It's going to be a massive thing.
Yeah.
But most importantly at probably the senior and leader level.
Exactly. Yeah.
So a big thing which we have massively seen this year is the increase in contracting.
Yeah.
So I think we definitely think that will carry on into 2025. Again, we'll kind of go into the reasons why. But with this year, I know we've kind of spoken about it, that we kind of almost feel that candidates, when they're going into a new role, they're not getting as much time to actually make an impact and get results. So I know you've kind of mentioned that you've found that they're just not getting as much time to actually make that impact because there's a bit of a kind of magnifying glass at the moment on teams and the individuals that are coming in.
Yeah, exactly. So, going back to the CEO, MD, general manager level, there's a lot of good people who are still in those roles, but there's also been a lot of movement at that senior level over the last 12 months. So a lot of people have been, under the magnifying glass, and other areas of the business have been under the magnifying glass. So businesses are looking at what they're doing with their agencies. So some people might be dumping a big agency for performance, for example, and then bringing a much smaller agency or an individual to help with their performance campaigns, or bringing it in-house as a cost-saving exercise. And then I was speaking to an FMCG business recently, which also has a really strong retail arm. And they basically, over a short period, looked at all of their tech tools and thought, we need to strip back 2/3 of this because we're not getting a really good ROI. So we'll focus on these instead. So that's a cost saving. And people are looking at headcount, the numbers in the team, but also the performance of each individual. So when someone's coming on board straight away, there's that mindset already from the business. I wouldn't say it's every business. We're talking as though it's blanket terms, but it's not. People do want to see an ROI straight away within a matter of 8 weeks to 3 months from certain individuals.
Yeah.
And we have seen people who have started a role and then within a week or two said, Jack, this is not for me. I don't have the budget. I had false promises, or just don't get on with the actual owner of the business. So I can't see how I can make an instrumental impact. But also on the flip side, we've heard of either clients we've worked with or clients who have recruited people that are in our own network, and within a matter of weeks just felt it's just not right, and they just can't get the ROI or envision getting the ROI on that individual.
Yeah.
And obviously it's all opinion based, or it's all opinion based. It's not actual facts. But I think there is that heightened thought process within businesses at the moment, particularly with the upcoming changes. It will be more apparent next year, where they do want to see ROI. They still want to remain competitive, but they want to get an ROI out of every single thing within the business. Yeah,
I agree. I think it's that thing of where there is just focus on every bit of money that is spent. It's just, I think it's just going to be a case where it's just focused on massively, and they want to make sure that they're getting what they're paying.
But saying that, this year, everyone who's gone to 3 roles through us have got the salary pretty much that they wanted. So getting those increases.
Yeah. So I think this year, that's a big thing with the salaries. People are still getting the salaries that they want. They're still getting the big rises. I do think that's going to change next year.
Yeah. We don't have a crystal ball.
We don't, but this is what we can imagine. But I think 100% people have been getting the increases that they want. They've been getting the salaries. I know you mentioned as well that some people have been securing roles that maybe they don't necessarily want, but would you say that's more at the senior level? Yeah, definitely more at the senior level. So there are some individuals who've been out of work for say 3 or 4 months. Some people still have a mortgage to pay, so they might secure a role which they're not necessarily 100% on. And then they will give us a call, give myself a call, and just say, I've secured this really great role. However, can you keep me posted on anything else which crops up? Because it's not the right salary, or it's not the right sort of sector. So there's a lot of that happening. But also, I've seen people start a role, then within a matter of 2 months, secure something else because they're using that as leverage to get something else. Okay, so another big thing this year has been the hands-on CMO. Yeah, so that's definitely something which a lot of people are looking for. So what we've seen is a lot of multi-million-pound Amazon businesses or B2B businesses going D2C
And then also there are a lot of private equity backed businesses which are growing teams from scratch or just completely overhauling the teams. So so a lot of CMOs are being brought on from a strategic and hands-on perspective. So from a hands-on perspective, they're coming on board, reevaluating everything, and they're having to actually pick a agency which will develop a Shopify website or a Magento website, pick a search agency, pick certain tech tools and build something from scratch and just completely re-platform, especially if there's no team. So what they're having to do is come on board in a certain capacity, be strategic, be hands-on, roll up their sleeves, and they're super, super busy and super, super stretched. So a lot of these are, superheroes. So certain leaders can do that. It depends, how hands-on they've previously been. And there are leaders who have been more strategic, and that's okay. So I would say there are certain businesses, not all businesses, who are looking for that hands-on leader. But also on the flip side, a lot of people who are more strategic or maybe still hands-on as well, what's really nice, they're actually getting these roles as MD, general manager, CEO, which are previously left for, finance directors. So if you think about it, an e-commerce director or digital director is a mini CEO, as a person who looks after the website, they're liaising with finance, they're liaising with HR, they're liaising with the supply chain. So as they step up the ladder and take that more overarching role, it obviously is a bigger responsibility from a man management perspective and also a P&L perspective. But they're getting these roles which lends really well with their skill set, being strategic, looking at pure play businesses and growing revenue online.
So we've kind of touched on it previously, but we keep going on about kind of networking and the network that you have has a lot of value. But we also know that reputation matters.
Yes.
So I think the sort of trends this year, as we've sort of mentioned before, is that a lot of people have kind of hired people that they know or they've had good experiences with. So, how much do you think actually that plays a part just in kind of
huge percentage?
Everything?
Yeah, okay. A huge percentage. So some people, I think a lot of people are very time sensitive and time poor. So a lot of people are very, very stretched. So even though they want to hire somebody, the fact that they've got to put time into it is a bit of a headache. So for example, I had a head of digital role a couple of weeks ago. Within 24 hours, had 20 candidates who were probably 8, 9, 10 out of 10, all on paper, sent them over to the client. But the client was just basically saying, I want that one really on paper.
Yeah.
She did want to interview like 2 or 3 people. However, she kind of had her mind made up because of the sector experience. And that's what a lot of clients are looking for, is that particular sector experience, square peg, square hole sort of scenario, because they don't want to put in time for a 4-week, 6-week process, especially if they know someone's going to work based on reputation. And there's also been situations where we've sent people across, and this is more, we're talking more about director level, senior level. I've worked with that person before, and if they're not going to come anywhere near this business, actually it happened with an e-commerce manager role that we had the other day. They said, I've worked with that person in a previous business, we're not going to progress them. So, community, reputation, building your reputation within the industry is super, super important, because digital and e-commerce is such a small, it's such a small world, isn't it? So word does get around.
No, definitely. And I think there's kind of a lot of things that we've mentioned there already on kind of leaders. What we've noticed this year is leaders have been made redundant monthly, but they've also been getting hired monthly.
Exactly.
So I think, that is important to remember. So I know that a lot of people out there will be really frustrated this year, but there's been some really great roles out there as well. A lot of businesses doing really well. So I know you kind of mentioned that people that you have been speaking to are actually now planning to build teams and have these kind of team builds rather than, just the kind of more ad hoc hiring. So, yeah, I mean, do you think that will kind of go into 2025 as well?
Yeah, 100%. So I think there's definitely ad hoc hiring still taking place, and there's regular hiring taking place. But there's these big corporates, maybe FTSE 250 businesses who have gone through 1, 2, 3 rounds of redundancies. And we're now beginning to have conversations with them. And they're saying to us, we've taken a step back, we've reevaluated, we do want to invest. We do want to invest in this particular area of digital and e-commerce, and we need you guys to help us. And there have been lots of team builds throughout this year where people have got ahead of the curve and thought, actually, we need to be doing this for next year, but we need to start it now. And that could either be to be number one and be super competitive, or it could be a cost saving exercise. We've done a lot of in-housing of performance teams, for multi-million, billion-pound businesses who just want to have that cost saving exercise, have that ownership. I think that's what it's about. People, going back to that ROI point of view, people just want to make sure that they've got full control now because they don't want to be wasting money. They want to remain competitive. And it's a challenging market, 2024 and 2025 will be super interesting as well with some of the changes that are going to come up.
Yeah, definitely. I think another couple of things that we have noticed, there's been a lot of focus on Amazon roles. A lot of focus on Amazon roles, and you've also mentioned, we've kind of all noticed that there has been a bit of a decrease in SEO roles.
Mm-hmm.
Where
have all the SEO roles gone?
Well, we have to kind of mention the AI, ChatGPT.
A lot of teams are using that now.
Yeah, but I think you still need a human. What I'm seeing a lot more is kind of SEO contract roles. Yeah. That is the kind of big key thing that I've been seeing. So, and I think a lot of people who have maybe been in perm roles on the SEO side have now gone more down the contract route.
Yeah, no, definitely. But I think, there has been a slight drop off for SEO roles for us. Everything else, we always seem to be working every single month on e-commerce roles, performance roles, director roles.
Social roles?
Social roles.
It's still really, really important, but it always will be.
There's been an increase in like TikTok roles.
Yes.
But obviously a lot of people are saying you have to have so much investment, especially from a content creation point of view, reactive. So I think people want to do that, but it's just so... you have to put a lot of time into it to actually make it work from a TikTok perspective. So those definitely increase and are increasing, for next year. But SEO, not so much every month. We don't really get that much. Also,
you mentioned a lot of people focusing on kind of Amazon. So we've been working on a number of those roles this year. That's been a really big focus. And to kind of, bring in their kind of first Amazon person or maybe second, third.
That's definitely happened. So, I mean, the market for Amazon is increasing still, dramatically every single year. So people, obviously the margins are totally different, but people do need to have that D2C site as well as that Amazon site because, if you're not on there, you're not selling products. So, but everyone does want to get onto it and is getting onto it. So.
A couple of other trends that we've definitely noticed, I know we've kind of already touched upon it, but it's just the slower processes. And I think what we've seen is that it's literally just not at kind of any particular level. We're looking at even junior execs and mid-level managers who are taking weeks and weeks and weeks to go through processes. I think that will need... It's a difficult one because I think it does need to change in 2025, but I actually think it will probably continue, if not get even longer, as people kind of go down the route of really making sure they're doing a lot of due diligence. So I think with processes this year, what we've seen very, very common, even at junior exec level, has been kind of maybe 4 weeks for a junior exec, maybe 4 to 6 weeks for a mid manager, but sometimes we're even seeing that go up to 8 weeks at the moment, so a couple of months, sometimes even longer depending on the company. And then at senior level, I think we're going on to a similar thing where it's 8 weeks if it's a perm role. Obviously if it's contracting, it's just 1 day, but at all levels the processes are very, very long, have been very, very long this year.
Yeah, I would say there are still people who are being super competitive. So it depends how risk adverse you are, because it could be seen as a risk. But if you're doing the due diligence at every stage, so there are some people who can cram in 2 stages within a week.
Yeah.
As long as they can do the due diligence and they can come away from that process super happy and comfortable, that this hire is going to be the right one for them, then they're making those decisions, they're making quick decisions. But there are those people who are, just stretching the whole processes out. And it's not a case about adding an extra process in, they're just being more thorough, but also is tapping into that thought process where some teams are completely and utterly stretched. So to put time into recruitment, they're having to do it outside of working hours, which is fine to secure talent. But I think that's where these processes are getting longer because of the fact that they are very time sensitive, time poor, but also some of them are really overanalyzing the process sometimes.
I think it's the overanalysis bit that we're seeing a lot.
Yeah.
It's always been a case that individuals do want to see kind of as many candidates they want, or maybe a top amount. They might say top 3 or top 5. But I think this year it's not really been about that. It's been because it is competitive on the candidate side. There are a lot more candidates. So I think companies are happy to take a little bit longer. But the issue with that is then we are losing good people. And, a lot of people are missing out on some great people at the moment.
Yeah. Because some people,
which is a shame.
Yeah, because some people, depends on the situation of the candidate, if they're out of work, living in London, which is high cost, they just need to get something straight away. So, what are you going to do at the end of the week where you got a job offer, or you got a promise of a second interview, but you don't know when that is,
Yeah.
As an exec or a manager, what are you going to do? Are you going to take the job, or are you going to risk losing out by going on a second interview and maybe not even getting that?
Yeah.
It's a flip of a coin. So, it's challenging, especially for those people who are out of work. But it's just the sign of the times, I guess, isn't it? Just in terms of what's happening.
But yeah, I think it will be good. I think what we'll hopefully look at next year, but I'd say the norm is for a junior exec level, your 2 weeks is fair. And then for mid-managers, 4 weeks. And then for seniors, it could be 6 to 8 weeks on a perm side. Again, this is not related to contracting because that should be ideally a week, really. If you're seeing a couple of people, I don't think it should really be longer than that. But even this year, it has taken a bit longer on the contract side, maybe 2 to 3 weeks.
It depends.
Maybe.
It depends. It depends, doesn't it? Just on, it's always schedules. It's always schedules. I feel like I think everyone needs a break at Christmas.
Yeah. But I feel like everyone has had a lot of breaks this year.
Do you think?
Do you not? I think that a lot
only
of
had
people...
one break.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think majority of people will feel it by December. Definitely us. But I feel like a lot of people have taken their holidays this year. Yeah. Maybe people are just like really burnt out.
Yeah.
I think people are burnt out this year because we're just trying to do so much with a lot less.
Exactly.
And I think that is meaning burnout. And I am noticing a lot more people taking off time this year.
Yeah, exactly. So there's more people who are working harder in their role. They might have the same amount of team, but they're just working a lot harder to get the same sort of revenues that they might have got 2 years ago, like the year or two after COVID. So a lot of owner-led businesses look back at that and think, let's get back to that sort of year where the revenue was good.
Yeah.
Or where some businesses haven't replaced, levers, or alternatively just don't have the same amount of budget that they had maybe 18 months ago. So as going back to what you said, just doing a lot more with a lot less. So I think that's playing into some of the long interview processes.
Yeah.
But again, we're talking about it as though it's a blanket statement. There are those individuals, especially where we have relationships with people where we're saying,
they've been great.
Yeah, this is a really good candidate. 8, 9, 10 out of 10 on paper. Yeah. They're interviewing with A, B, or C. Let's move quickly. Yeah. And if clients are open to that and understand that they need to do that to secure good talent, there are clients out there who are willing to put themselves out, prioritize recruitment, and get good people in quickly.
Definitely, I think we know the good, we know the good processes, and we can think of them off the top of the head, and I think that really matters because that kind of just will stay with you, and that will also make a good impression to candidates. And I think that's another thing to remember, because sometimes it is really hard to see it from candidates' perspective sometimes. And if it's a good, quick process, then that's great. But, at the same time, I do think clients are sort of changing priorities as well as they're going through the process. We've noticed a lot of that where they're kind of getting through the process and thinking, actually, we want something different, or maybe let's go down a different route. And again, that's adding a number of weeks onto that process. And as usual, we do see the normal kind of pausing processes. Actually, we don't need this role anymore. We're going to do it this way, or whatever the case is. So I think that will always be like that.
Yeah.
But I think the bigger thing with this year has just definitely been the longer processes.
Yeah.
Something that I feel very passionate about, I think, but I know you mentioned it. We are seeing it a lot this year, but the trend to go into the office more days.
Yeah, I think the average is like 2 or 3 days still.
Yeah, which is fair.
But we are getting more people saying, new clients that are coming to us, but also clients that we've worked with, historically, and they're saying, oh, let's do 4 or 5 days a week in the office. And I guess they're the ones which are taking longer, because if you're a candidate and you've got 2 roles or 3 roles, you're getting the same salary, but one's working an extra day or 2 from home. You don't have to spend the money to travel.
You're not going to think about it.
Exactly. It's a no-brainer. You may as well just do it.
Yeah.
So that happens quite a lot. So I think we never mentioned that. So that's one of the reasons why some processes are longer, because some clients are doing a lot more in the office. But that's, again, a sign of the times. 3-4 years ago, it was normal to have 5 days in the office, but not many people want to do that. They all think about the work-life balance.
No, definitely. And I think with digital, it's always been a case that I don't think it just sort of happened where, okay, COVID happened and then everyone suddenly realized, oh, we can actually do these roles from home and be
you do it from home now.
Yeah, you can do it from home now, and you can be really effective.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, digital is focused on how to make information accessible from anywhere and everywhere. So it doesn't make sense that people would then say, well, you do need to actually be in the office 5 days a week for that. Because the thing is, people's lives haven't changed. They haven't stopped. People have got maybe more responsibilities after COVID because they had that flexibility. And I think during that time, everyone was able to see that, yes, we can work from home. Not all the time. We can still get a good culture if we're in the office a few times a week. But we can work from home. Obviously, there are jobs out there that you absolutely cannot do from home, NHS, etc. You
wouldn't want your surgeon working from home.
No,
yeah.
no, that would not be a good time. But when it comes to digital, I really do feel that it's going to be very, very difficult, or companies will have to really, really think about why they want people back in 5 days a week or 4 days a week. And I think the reasons will have to be really, really clarified, because, it's just one of those things where people's lives haven't changed. People still have responsibilities. And if anything, you kind of end up working longer hours because you're not commuting 3 hours. A lot of times you can't get seats because, so you're standing for hours, etc. So you can't actually just be on your laptop, where, a lot of people did do that kind of back in the day. But that's only if you're at the start of the line, right? Not if you're jumping on in the middle. So you almost end up working a bit longer until you can actually get more out of people, because you start work during that travel time.
Yeah,
sometimes
people start earlier at home, I think.
Yeah,
and finish later. They might have a break at lunch, maybe a longer break. The amount of times where I speak to people where they go into the gym or have an exercise class, and they do say it lasts longer than an hour.
Yeah, but then you're coming back and making that time up.
Exactly.
And it's fine.
But it depends on the flexibility of the owner or the business, and they can make their own decisions on that. I think it's just about what are the KPIs, what are the targets for this month or quarter?
Yeah.
Are you delivering them? Most people want that answer to be a yes. So as long as you're producing the results, then I guess there can be elements of flexibility, but people have got to have that time to earn it as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that is really important. But I think especially going into next year, people have to kind of use more than, it's for the culture, as a kind of reason for wanting people back in 5 days a week. And I think that's going to be really important. And I think another thing to remember is that we do speak to candidates who are looking for other roles because, their company has gone, okay, we're having a new kind of thing where we're going to have to go into the office more days a week. And because of that, they're looking. So it's one of those things where they may go into the role if it's 4 days, 5 days a week, but how long are they going to stay there? And I think that is that's
the question mark.
That's the question mark. And that is something to think about.
And is there anything else that we've seen this year? Just trying to think from a client perspective. Budget salaries are usually the same, or I don't think there's been a decrease in salary at every single level. I think a lot of people going into roles and getting the salary that they want.
100%.
What about that situation with that person who went into a process and asked for a 4-day working week instead of a 5? So I think because of the element of flexibility working from home, I think a lot of people can be flexible to certain individuals' ways of working or life outside of work to accommodate, particularly in hard to fill locations. So we've seen that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think you have to be flexible.
Yeah.
There's just no question about it. And I think every company needs to, if they're finding it hard to get people through the door, you have to be flexible. And I think most people do understand that. Yeah. I think most people do. You do speak to some people that don't understand that. But I think for the most part, people understand that, we have to be a bit flexible here. And that's fine because everyone has different types of lives. So
going into next year, 2025. So there's been a few changes this year, hasn't there, which will definitely have a knock-on effect for 2025.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because I think people were getting, in the later part of this year, people were getting a bit more confident, confident going into 2025. I do think the budget has shaken it a little bit. But, I think next year we can definitely see sort of the similar trends of what we mentioned, just kind of really, really thinking about processes, a lot more due diligence. Contracting will definitely increase. Another big thing is Trump is in. Yeah. So whatever anyone thinks about him is a different matter. But I think we've sort of said that we do think there'll be kind of maybe more of an interest to invest in the US on a business perspective. I think you mentioned that as well.
Like I've fallen out of love with politicians and politics anyway. So
I think everyone has.
But if you were to just look at, say, Labour coming in and Trump coming in, you can only look at the markets and how they've reacted to those decisions. Yeah. So, 20% of the population voted Labour in. When they brought out the budget, the markets dipped. So, in terms of NI, that's increased. Employers' NI has increased 1.2%, I think. And then, the national living wage or minimum wage has increased 6.7%. So those changes are going to have a huge impact on businesses. Yeah. So the costs of hiring have increased. So massively, yeah. So what are businesses going to do? They're either going to increase their costs, their prices. Sorry, they're either going to increase their prices or they're going to let people go. So, so that you have seen that already with some of the businesses throughout 2024. And if a lot of costs do increase for some businesses next year, one of the things which they may want to do is part ways with some staff. And that's just one of the decisions that businesses have to make. But on the flip side, which I think a lot of businesses still need to remain super competitive. They still need to get the best talent. They still need to be profitable. They still need to get the right people on board to actually be competitive and be number one within their chosen space. So recruitment's not going to go away anytime soon in terms of employees. There's still going to be lots and lots of roles out there. Yeah. But it'd be slightly different. So, every single year and each incoming government will change the way businesses work and how they employ. Trump coming into America, look at how the markets reacted there. So obviously, in terms of the market, it's increased, in terms of when Trump came in, the markets the day after increased. So there's a lot of confidence over there. But you just don't know how things will just play out. you know, a lot of business owners that I've spoken to want to invest in America, and their eyes are shifting over to America. But Trump's policy as well, going down the politics side of things, which I hate to do.
Which let's not go too far down there.
Let's not go down any rabbit holes. But he's got a US first approach. So how will that impact the investment from businesses from the UK and elsewhere in the world? I mean, I don't know, because I don't have a crystal ball. What people just need to do is, there's still going to be good roles out there. There's still going to be investment. There's still be businesses competing. So it's about just making sure that you've got all your ducks in a row, making sure that you're keeping your network strong, your relationships, and just working hard and moving forward. So I think that's what a lot of people need to think about going into 2025 as well. I
think a thing that we have seen as well, a lot of people have been able to get kind of 10K, 15K increases on their salaries. I think with the increase in employers' national insurance contributions, and then also minimum wage, one, it might impact how many, I suppose, junior candidates will be recruited. Or it might go the other way, where more juniors will be hired, and then it will sort of stop at mid-level managers, and then we'll get the seniors more on a contracting basis. So I think that will probably happen for a lot of businesses who are definitely more on the kind of leaner side. And then I do think that some salary increases will kind of taper off a bit. So we'll be seeing more of the kind of maybe 5K increases, or just smaller increases. I don't really think there'll be a dip or undercutting of salaries. But yeah, it's just, I think you're right. Maybe it will just, people will be looking more at reducing headcount rather than actually reducing salaries. So I think that's a big thing to think about. Junior candidates, junior execs. It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because at the same time, you need to get things done.
Exactly.
So but
the decision will be made whether they take a permanent member of staff on, or because of the day one rights, which are going to be introduced next year.
2026.
Oh, it's 2026.
Yeah, so unfair dismissal will be a day one right, autumn 2026.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so I think, again, but people start to get into the swing of doing slower processes, more due diligence.
Yeah.
That will be a big thing. And what we were talking about is when that does come into play in 2026, there'll be a lot more monitoring. So for your first few months...
We don't have to worry about it for next year. But people will still be thinking about it.
They'll be thinking about it. Yeah, definitely. Because I think in those first few months, we were talking about probation periods, and from people that I've spoken to, especially within human resources and things like that, they don't necessarily think probation periods will get to 6 months. For some seniors, yes.
Yeah.
6 months, and then obviously notice period is 6 months. But when we're looking at kind of probation periods, I think it will stick at the 3, but there'll be a lot more monitoring, and there'll be a lot more kind of focusing on results, setting the KPIs, and being a lot more clearer about what those look like.
But I think that's what will happen next year. So I think a lot of businesses will look at their staff next year and just say who's given us the ROI, because we've got these increased costs from an NI perspective, but also national minimum wage. But also increasing costs for, business costs themselves are increasing. So they're looking at every single person and thinking, okay, and I'm keeping using ROI quite a lot. What is the ROI in this person? But yes, there might be some changes. There might be some redundancies. But again, businesses still need to operate, still need to compete. So they're still going to hire to get good people so that they can start leveling up. So there will still be some really good roles out there. And I've spoken to a huge FMCG business last week, a huge retailer, multi-billion-pound retailer last week as well. And they've gone through rounds of redundancies, and they're talking to us for next year about team builds. But what they're talking about, they've had those long meetings internally and going, we've saved the money here, we've saved the money there. What we're going to invest our money in terms of digital and from an e-commerce and marketing perspective, we're going to put it into here, and then we're going to make this many hires. So there are people who are already talking about that and discussing that already.
Yeah, which is really good. I think from a sort of recruitment perspective, if you are a candidate in 2025, I would expect, and we're already starting to see it, but just more in-depth stages.
Yeah.
And then they'll definitely be asking recruiters to do a lot more kind of background checks. So I would definitely be prepared to be giving a lot more references, which kind of circles back to our making a good impression with everyone that you kind of touch and speak to. And, reputation is key, because we are getting a lot more requests for references, and those are becoming exceptionally important. And when you're looking at costs, they're increasing. I think a lot of companies just won't be able to take any chances almost. It's kind of that feeling. So there's going to be a lot of references. So I do think people would need to be prepared for that.
Yeah. So I think in the past, some companies just don't do their due diligence from a reference perspective. So I definitely think because of all these different changes that are going to happen, there'll still be good roles out there, still people going for the roles, but also there'll be a lot more due diligence, I think, as you said as well.
Yeah, definitely. A lot more focus on like greater responsibility on middle managers. I think that would be a big thing. And then contracting on the more senior side will be a big thing for 2025, I think, as these cost rises, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Especially if you get, CMOs and leaders with so much experience, great, fantastic experience that can really go into businesses and just kind of change things around. That's a great amount of experience to kind of have under your belt.
But we had that lady from beauty who we were speaking on the phone to yesterday, who we've known for a long time, and we put her into an SME within homeware, and she's done phenomenally well.
Yeah.
And within a matter of weeks has been able to actually increase revenue within certain areas, particularly email.
Amazing. Yeah.
And I think maybe search. So if people can actually get an instant increase of revenue by bringing in these senior people on a 2 day a week basis, then it's a kind of no-brainer. But it's happening more and more and more. I spoke to another person a month ago, and she's got 7 different clients on that she's working with every single week.
Oh wow!
And there are those sort of individuals who were on in their perm role over 100K, and now getting 700, 800, £1,000 a day. So if you're getting those sort of contract roles, you can be utilizing your experience, not getting involved with company politics, and earning, slightly more than what you were on last.
People love that.
And working more from home. So there are a lot of individuals this year, going back to what we've seen, going down that route, either out of choice or they've been made redundant, but they're utilizing their own past networks and relationships to leverage that and actually get really good contract roles. And get good day rates as well.
So we'll see a lot more of that. Well, we definitely know we have to buckle up, see how 2025 goes. But thank you everyone for joining us today. Let us know what you think about what we've said. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Have you had the same experiences? Have you had completely different experiences? Let us know in the comments below. And yeah, we'll be really interested to see those comments. But for myself, Jack, everyone at Blue Digital, have a great holiday season. And yeah, we can't wait to meet you all in 2025.
Merry Christmas, guys.